already thrown an interception. We call that foreshadowing because here comes another, and it's going back to the house.
Look, Phillip all night long was tipping off his passes, and Eric Harris was on it all night. Look, Phillip, without a doubt, was a little bit worried about the protection as far as some of the injuries he's had on his offensive line. Wasn't a good showing for him on the road.
Second time in his career he's thrown picks on the first two series of a game. That was a 56-yard touchdown for Eric Harris. But the Chargers, down 10-0, they would answer. This is Hunter Henry in the back of the end zone, capping off a 16-play drive. But watch out, celebrating can be hazardous to your health. Oh, he takes it right off the face. It's 10-7. Now, huge moment in the game. Under 5 minutes to go in the second. Phillip Rivers throws another interception, but hold everything. It's called back on a penalty. Raiders were offside, and instead it turns into a Melvin Gordon touchdown.
Yeah, this is one of those things where you thought the momentum was starting to leave the building and that maybe the Raiders were going to mistake their way into a loss. But Derek Carr had an answer.
Derek Carr did have an answer right before the half. They're going the other way. That's Alec Ingold. And the Raiders have a 17-14 lead before halftime. Good game. Fourth quarter. Chargers are down 3. Second and goal. They had long drives last night. This one was 12 plays, 80 yards. Austin Eckler touchdown.
Yeah, they were very well balanced all night long. Melvin Gordon was running the ball ferociously, which obviously later in the football game, the head coach had to answer for why they didn't run the ball late in the game.
Raiders, meanwhile, trying to have an answer. That's Hunter Renfrow for 13 yards and a first down. Then later in the drive, Josh Jacobs. How about this rookie taking it to the house for the lead?
Yeah, this kid has just been incredible all year long. He has, without a doubt, brought balance to this football team, and Derek Carr continues to excel on fourth quarter game-winning drive.
But they would miss the extra point, so a field goal is going to beat him. Here's Phillip Rivers trying to bring his team down. That's a fourth down play. They've got it stopped, but hold everything. There's defensive holding, so a fresh set of downs for the Chargers, and here they are. First down, Rivers, Jason Moore, no good.
Look, he kept all night long again. You saw him looking at his primary receivers. Raider defensive backs had a good beat on where he was trying to go with the football, and the pass rush was a factor all night long.
This is a third down play for Henry, no good. Rivers in the end would go 0 for 7 on this final drive of opportunities to try and keep his team's game and maybe season alive. This is the fourth down play, and it's essentially a punt. Rivers throws 3 picks and 2 others that are called back. 17 of 31, 207 yards. Raiders, a big win. They improved to 5-4, and John Gruden was celebrating with the fans.
We got a lot of resilient guys. They're going to keep competing. You know, you may beat us, but we're going to be a hard out. We are very happy with our foundation, our process. A lot of guys deserve credit, but I'm exhausted. 2 games in 4 days is something I hate.
I obviously wish I'd have played better when you turn it over. When you throw 2 interceptions early, I mean, the last one counts, I know, on the board, but the 2 interceptions and then 8 plays not getting anything, I'm disappointed I didn't do a better job in those 2 spots especially.
Boy, there's a lot to say here this morning. Let's start by saying this. The Raiders were called crazy when they traded away Khalil Mack. Well, they have 13 touchdowns from rookies this year, almost double the next closest team in the league. Only time they ever had more in 1982, Marcus Allen himself scored 14 touchdowns as a rookie. So I'll turn to you guys here. Bobby, I'll start with you. These Raiders, they've put it together. They've had a ridiculous schedule. They didn't play an actual home game from the middle of September until last week. And here they are, 5-4 with games coming up against the Bengals and the Jets.
Yeah, this team could conceivably or should probably be 7-4 and in the thick of the playoff race. And I think when we look back to the beginning of the season, if you would have told me, hey, we're 10, 11, 12 weeks in, the Raiders are a game out potentially of first place in the AFC West, trailing the Chiefs, a chance to potentially make a playoff run, I would have said you were crazy. But John Gruden has done a masterful job with this, and they're getting it not just because, of the skill players and him wanting to throw the ball, but it's them pounding the football with Jacobs.
And Mark, let's talk about the quarterback in particular, because we always joke, John Gruden's favorite quarterback is always the next one he can get. But Carr's playing pretty well, and to the point you made in the meeting this morning, he's not turning the ball over.
He's playing his butt off. He's taking care of the football, and they're doing it without that splash player at receiver. I remember we were all sitting here when Antonio Brown left, and I was guilty of it just like everybody else. What are they going to do? What's Derek Carr going to do? And look what he's done. He's done it with players almost like Peyton Manning when you had receivers that you don't know their names. They're not household guys. He's completing the ball at a high efficiency rate. He's getting the ball to his backs and his tight ends. I mean, Gruden's got to be thrilled with that.
It's not just good. I mean, the guy is right now hitting career highs in yards per attempt, completion percentage, passer rating, touchdown percentage. And his fourth quarter drive record, touchdown winning drive record, is second only to Matthew Stafford since 2014. I mean, what more do you want from him? He quite honestly has answered the bell in every way. And he said in the preseason, I'm in the second year of this offense. I know exactly what John wants. I'm in lockstep with him as far as how he wants it executed in critical moments. And last night he showed that.
But you also mentioned Josh Jacobs. Let's not forget that the run game has really helped out Derek Carr tremendously because he doesn't have that pressure anymore. He only has the pressure, as you said, maybe on one drive or two to make a few plays, and that's really what being in sync is with the offense. It's like, look, Josh Jacobs, we know what we're going to be offensively, and we know the identity we want to have. All I need to do is make 4 or 5 plays in the game, and we're good.
Just one or two drives, just at the end of the game. No big deal, right?
No big deal. Not at all. Not at all.
To sort of put a ribbon on this, and we have a lot more to say, including a lot more about the quarterback situation for the Chargers that we'll do a little later in the program. But to sort of put a ribbon on this, you've been high on this for a while. John Gruden gets there. He brings in his guy Mayock. They're starting to put it together. They get heavily criticized for trading away Khalil Mack. Yeah. But here they come.
Well, I had the benefit, Greeny, of being out there in preseason during training camp and talking to some of these guys, spending some time with John. I understand kind of how John really looks at football. I played for him in '98 when he was in Oakland. And he's one of the better teachers in the NFL. And he's one of those guys who's kind of miscast as being a typical West Coast, throw the football all over the place, finesse-style coach. He's anything but that. This football team is a blue-collar, downhill, ram the ball down your throat, play good defense type of philosophy. And he's getting the people right now who are young, who are willing to be coached, who are willing to buy into what he's selling. And what you see is throughout the course of the game, this team believes in what he's selling them. And look, I mean, really, other than Josh Jacobs, think of their fourth-round pick, Max Crosby, their defensive end. He typifies the type of guys that they're looking for, and the results speak for themselves.
And everybody kind of smirked a little bit when Mayock got hired, but I think this is what you have, and this is what you find when the GM and the coach are on the same page with the type of player you want for both sides of the football. You're able to see that type of success, and it's manifesting itself now.
I'll say it again. The Raiders are going to make the playoffs in the AFC this year. Meanwhile, on the other side, we could be seeing the end of an era. We'll talk about that more as we continue. But on this Football Friday, let us get now to what is the biggest game of the year, and there isn't any question about it. Tomorrow, LSU, Alabama. Crimson Tide, a 6-point favorite at Caesars. They've won 31 straight home games dating back to 2015. That's the longest streak in SEC history. LSU, meanwhile, is led by quarterback Joe Burrow, who is first in the nation in completion percentage. He's completing 79% of his passes this year, which is ridiculous. It's on pace to break the all-time FBS record for a single season. On the other side, tanking for Tua, remaining a game-time decision after undergoing surgery to repair a high ankle sprain. He leads the nation in total QBR and is second in completion percentage. So this one has all the makings. You couldn't ask for much more from a football game than we're going to get here. So we've spent all week talking about what's at stake. Now it's time to start talking about what's actually going to happen. Vilma, I'm going to start with you. Yeah. What is the number one thing from an Alabama standpoint you're looking for from their offense to win the ball?
Offensive line has to protect Tua. Offensive line doesn't protect Tua, and Tua somehow is out of this game because of injury, then it is not. There's no chance Alabama can keep up points-wise with LSU to win this game. So you're watching. The offensive line, by the way, has done a phenomenal job all season long. But when you're talking about now a guy that's hurt, and I'm telling you what I would do, I would blitz this guy early and often, and I would press the wide receivers so I can take away those now screens, those bubble screens that he likes to dump off easily to receivers and force him to run. You force him to run, maybe in the first quarter, it may not affect him. Third quarter, fourth quarter, that's when his ankle, he'll start to feel it.
How about from a defensive standpoint, Bobby Carpenter, from an Alabama standpoint?
Well, Nick Saban, Bill Belichick disciple, one of the things Bill always preaches is disrupting the wide receivers at the line of scrimmage, throwing off the timing of those routes, and that's going to be a big piece of this. LSU, the only team in college football with multiple receivers that average more than 100 yards per game in Jefferson and in Chase. So Joe Burrow's been highly accurate. He's had great timing and rhythm. They need to press them. They need to disrupt the timing of that to throw that offense off.
This is not, your father's Alabama defense, right? We always think of Nick Saban as having these legendary defenses. That's not how they're built this particular season. Now let's go to the other side. Bobby, LSU on offense, what do they have to do to win the game?
Oh, they got to control it. They got to take care of the football. In Alabama, when you go back since 2008, they've lost 4 games at home, -9 in the turnover margin in those games. And that guy right there, Joe Burrow, 30 touchdowns, 4 interceptions this year, one of the most efficient quarterbacks in college football. And his passing completion percentage, it's not based on checkdowns. He throws the ball down the field, but he does it in a safe way. So they cannot give Bama short fields, and Joe Burrow will not let that happen.
To this point, he's been the best player in the country. Vilma, what does the Alabama defense do to change that?
Pressure. I mean, Joe Burrow has never been pressured by a forefront defensive line. It's always been manufactured pressure, and because of that manufactured pressure, he would light up the secondary if it's man coverage or easy zone. I'm looking at Terrell Lewis right here, who has 6 of the 19 sacks for Alabama. He needs to create havoc all game long, and Joe Burrow has to feel that. If he doesn't feel it and his clock isn't rushing his head, it's going to be easy pickings for him all day.
What do you make of all this, Sanchez, as you sit here and listen to some of this individual breakdown? What does this game come down to for you?
Don't let Joe Burrow get into a rhythm. This kid is lights out. I spent time with him. We'll talk about it later in the show, Greeny, but this kid, I'm all in on him. These scouts are drooling over him, but really, it's this running back, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Remember this name. This kid, after Joe Burrow threw a pick in the Auburn game, he rushed the ball 5 straight times and then took him 55 yards down the field for a touchdown. This kid, he gets him out of trouble. He's his security blanket along with Thaddeus Moss, Randy's son. Those are his guys that have to have sneaky big nights.
For those of you guys who do the college and you live in it day in and day out, I mean, I did this essay on the air yesterday. Nick Saban has only lost 4 games at home in the last 11 years. The home field advantage is so overwhelming. How does that factor into this game?
It's a huge piece of it. It is in Alabama, but it comes down to turnovers. Like in those games that they lost, Greeny, -9.
Right.
They did not get turnovers, and they turned the football over. So that's a huge piece of this. Let's not forget, they also did play Auburn, one of the best defensive lines, if not the best in the country. And Joe Burrow, they're able to hold up, keep protection in that game for him as well.
This may not be this Alabama defense may not be the best defense LSU has seen already this year, right?
Yeah, you can make a case that Auburn was a better defense. You can make a case a healthy Florida defense was a better defense. So Alabama is well coached. Let's not get it twisted. They're very well coached and they're going to be ready. But yeah, this is not over the top for LSU to win this game.
Alabama has absolutely everything at stake. I think everyone agrees they cannot afford to lose this game. LSU might still get in with a loss in a close game tomorrow. We will obviously
No, don't start that. No, they cannot lose. If you are a one-loss team not making your conference championship game this season, you're not getting in. Not happening.
And listen, I'm not going to argue with you because you are much, much tougher than I am.
I don't even want to start that conversation right now.
We have a lot more preview of this as the morning continues, but I want to get back to the NFL because I want you to hear from one of the most famous people in the sport. It has been a first half of the season to forget for Odell Beckham Jr. and the Browns. They're 2-6 going into this week's matchup with the Bills, who are 6-2, and Beckham has just 39 catches. Yesterday, he reflected on how he's handled the adversity of the season.
I've just grown. I've come to a different place, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, however you want to put it. That energy still tries to find its way to get me upset, whether it's something about a cleat or a visor or all these little stupid things that the only people who are worried about them are the people who are doing and saying something about them. People just want to see me break. I think they want to see that side that was in there with what I was dealing in another situation. Nothing's ever gonna really bother me. I'm gonna come here, I'm gonna do my job, I'm gonna try and give 110 every time that I can go, and that's just it.
Okay. So there's our situation with Odell and the Browns. Their season may be hopelessly lost. Certainly they have to win this week. Lewis, you've sat back, and I've been following your Twitter feed this week. You've had a lot to say about the Browns.
Sure.
What is your big picture take?
Yeah, man, look, it starts at the very top. It starts at the selection by John Dorsey of Freddie Kitchens to be the head coach. When last year, when things actually started turning around, it was Greg Williams who was at the helm. Now, I understand the quarterback-coach relationship between Baker and Freddie Kitchens is something that is important, but obviously from a head coach perspective, the requirements to fill that job are much different than the requirements to fill the primary play caller job. And then when you look at Freddie Kitchens as a head coach and you look at how undisciplined this football team and how it's the most heavily penalized football team in the NFL and how offensively they're not utilizing their weapons, how structurally they're flawed as far as offensive line being a weak point, really this falls at the feet of John Dorsey first, Freddie Kitchens second. And we can sit here and bang on, Odell Beckham all we want, and as far as, and he can make comments about, people want to see me break, people want to make a big deal out of my watch, a big deal out of my cleats and all that. That has nothing to do with really what ails this football team. This football team is flawed as far as how it was put together at the very top on down. And quite honestly, Jimmy Haslam better start asking some questions about why did we select Freddie Kitchens? What were his qualifications? Because he had none really to speak of that he should have been put in this position. And right now, expectations, we talked numerous times. It had shifted from hope to expectations in Cleveland. And with expectations come consequences when you don't meet them and they're not meeting them. And this is how people get fired. And people are going to get fired in Cleveland. I can bet you that.
No question. I agree with literally every single word you just said. I want to take it to you, though, back to the Odell piece of this, because he is the most famous person in the entire mix, and you can throw in Kitchens and Baker and everybody else. How do you think Odell has handled what has been a stunningly bad start?
He's handled it perfectly. Odell Beckham has done everything he's been asked of for the team as far as coming in, practicing, and then he doesn't have these outbursts, right? So the outbursts we're waiting for. We're the media that are sitting there, frankly, just poking the bear, waiting for him to have the outburst. So everything he said, there was truth to it, where they start talking about his shoes, a watch, or whatever it is. And then you say, well, now if he does have an outburst, oh, here's Odell Beckham. Oh, my gosh, he's having one of these outbursts, and we revert back to the past. And he's trying to say, that is not who I am. Stop poking the bear.
And to look at this, when this trade went down and they brought him in, everybody, if you would have envisioned worst case scenario, Brown's not winning, issues with the coach.
He's not getting the ball.
He's not getting the ball.
Right.
There's controversy everywhere. There's cleats, there's watches, there's visors. All of those things have transpired, and we haven't heard him say a thing. I would have thought his Twitter timeline would have looked a lot more like Antonio Brown's this week than what it currently does. He's done a
And that's the point,
job.
Bobby. Let's just leave him alone. Let's just leave him be.
The only thing I would add to this is not the way you develop a quarterback. There's so many things going wrong. It just makes it so difficult.
I just love how you brought in the quarterback.
Right,
We're all on OBJ.
At some point, it just makes it tough. It's like put him in a good position. Get him. You got him the players. Well, now get him the system. You know.
Let me ask a question on that. But for Marks to begin with, I can sit here and say, why aren't they throwing the ball to Odell? Fourth down play, right? That's the play we keep showing over and over again, where he throws the ball to Landry on the left side, and Landry over the middle, and Odell is running up the left side with single coverage. It's so easy for me to sit here and say, why the heck didn't he just throw the ball to Odell? Is it as easy as that?
It's not as easy as you think, and these guys are in second and long, but they're in second and long all the time. They're constantly playing catch up. They're constantly trying to manufacture offense. It's not fun to watch. I just feel, in some ways, I feel for Baker. I don't agree with all of his comments all the time, and they brought a lot of it on themselves. But in some ways, I just feel for the guy. Like, man, it's not fun. That's hard.
Let me rephrase the question.
Greedy went like this. Okay, now let me ask you.
Let me rephrase the question to Mark. Has anything ever been the quarterback's fault ever?
No.
Yes.
No, never.
There's no reason in that fourth down situation that they couldn't have said this. If you get single high and it's one-on-one out there, throw it to him.
Throw it to him.
I don't care what anybody else is. Throw it to him.
I've heard that in the headset.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right. I mean,
throw it to Braylon. Throw it to Santonio. Okay, you got it.
I mean, everyone should be saying it, and yet it didn't happen. And so we wonder why they keep losing. All right, let me get up and go. I got a bunch of things I want to get to quickly. Start with the Cowboys. Coming off back-to-back wins, they're 5-3. A narrow lead in the NFC East. They play a good Vikings team this week. Dak Prescott, looking at his offense, sees room to grow.
It hasn't been clean. We haven't played our best ball, but you can look at the numbers and hey, we're number one in offense. That's something that we could be proud of. But it's not the staple. It's not who we are. It's not what we're aiming for. We're aiming to be a successful team, successful offense. And as I said, we haven't played our best ball, and it's ahead of us.
Mark, do you believe that? Is the best ball ahead for Dak in Dallas?
I absolutely think so, and here's why. I really think Kellen Moore has Dak in a groove. And listen, when you're playing pro quarterback in the NFL, you got to have at least 10 to 15 drop back plays where you got to diagnose the defense, throw an accurate ball, make a solid read, and complete the football. Kellen Moore is doing such a great job of giving him breather plays, just little easy bubble screens, little easy checkdowns to Zeke and letting him run. Those plays are so important for Dak's development and their success.
Next up is A.J. Green, left ankle not responding. He's out indefinitely. Bobby, how bad is that with the new quarterback starting this week in Finley?
Well, it's rough for Finley, but it's probably the best thing for the Bengals. Let's be honest here. They're in competition for for the first overall pick. They're probably going to try to figure out the quarterback situation at that point. And if I'm AJ Green, I'm looking around at this scenario, trying to figure out what is in it for me. Why would I be out there playing? I've got the ankle injury. Oh, and by the way, I'm a pending free agent.
Washington is next. They've placed Trent Williams on the reserve non-football injury list, brings his season to an end. Lewis, what's our reaction to this?
Yeah, I think this is the end to what is going to wind up being a pretty sad situation as far as maybe this team could have handled this better, sent Trent Williams down the road. There's going to be a lot of information, I'm sure, that's going to come out about this situation as far as Trent's health, some of Trent's issues with the Redskins. The Redskins are going to have their say. I think this is one you just better stay tuned as far as what's going to happen here.
We will continue on this Football Friday on Get Up. So much still to come. That guy, Joe Burrow, how's he gone from a good prospect to a great one? Sanchez spent some time in the film room with him. You'll see it all. Plus, he really struggled last night. Will Phillip Rivers be a starting quarterback in week 1 of next season? How about some of the other big names around the league? We'll talk about that.